There's a quiet battle unfolding inside of you one you may not even be aware of. You work hard, you strive, you dream, and yet something keeps holding you back. It's not always the external world that blocks your path. Sometimes it's the invisible patterns buried deep within the unseen forces that Carl Jung believed reside in the unconscious. Have you ever wondered why? No matter how much effort you put in, life doesn't seem to reflect your true potential. Why your sense of fulfillment always feels just out of reach. This isn't failure. It's a sign and a signal that something within is misaligned with who you truly are. And unless you confront it, you'll keep circling the same mountain, mistaking movement for progress. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That single sentence holds the key to understanding why some people flourish, while others remain stuck in cycles of frustration. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more but can't seem to break through, it's not a lack of ambition, it's the weight of inner conflicts that were never brought to the surface. These hidden mistakes we make aren't always obvious. They're subtle, often disguised as strengths or survival strategies, but in truth, they quietly sabotage your growth from within. Maybe you've been chasing success in the wrong direction, or perhaps you've been holding onto beliefs that no longer serve the person you're re-becoming. This isn't about blame, it's about awakening. Because until you see the root of these self-imposed limitations, you can't heal them. And without healing, you can't thrive, not truly. That's where this journey begins. Not with fixing the outside world, but with understanding the inner architecture that Jung believed was the foundation of our destiny. So if you've ever asked yourself, what's really holding me back? This is your moment, because what you're about to uncover are not just 5 common mistakes. They are 5 unconscious patterns deeply rooted in the psyche, shaping your choices, emotions, and outcomes. They are the shadows of your potential, and unless brought to light, they will continue to rule your life from behind the curtain. But make no mistake, this isn't just theory. This is about transformation. Each of these mistakes holds within it a key, and with every key, a door opens. A door to self-knowledge, authenticity, and the kind of life that resonates with your inner truth. Jung believed that real thriving doesn't come from external validation, it comes from individuation. The sacred process of becoming who you truly are. That's what we're stepping into now. As you watch, I invite you to listen not only with your mind, but with your soul. Because this isn't a checklist, it's a mirror. A reflection of the parts of you that are asking to be seen, understood, and read. And once they are, you'll begin to see your life shift in ways you never thought possible. So stay with me until the very end, because what's waiting on the other side is not just clarity, but freedom. Freedom to break old patterns, to realign with your purpose, and to finally thrive not in someone else's image, but in the fullness of your own. Let's begin. We all wear masks. It's part of living in, but over time, we begin to confuse the mask with who we really are. Jung called this the persona necessary construct, but one that, if clung to too tightly, becomes a prison. The first mistake many make on the journey to thriving is this. They deny their shadow, that is, they reject the darker, hidden parts of themselves, believing that thriving means being only good, positive, or in control. But what if the very parts you're suppressing are the ones holding your greatest power? The shadow isn't evil, it's simply the unlived life. The parts of you that were shamed, silenced, or feared. The anger you buried, the desires you pretended not to feel, the truth you swallowed to keep the peace. Jung believed that, until we confront this shadow, we remain fragmented. And fragmentation leads to stagnation. You cannot thrive when half of your psyche is locked away in the basement. You might perform well, impress others, or even achieve surface-level success, but deep down, something always feels off, empty, incomplete. Truth. Thriving begins where honesty begins. You must have the courage to look inward, to face what's uncomfortable, and to bring the shadow into the light, not to shame it, but to integrate it. Integration doesn't mean acting on every impulse. It means recognizing those impulses, understanding their origin, and choosing how to express them consciously. This is how you regain inner power, not by controlling your shadow, but by befriending it. Think about how much energy you've spent trying to be what others expect. How many parts of yourself you've had to cut off just to feel loved or accepted. That suppression doesn't disappear, it festers. It shows up in self-sabotage, projection, anxiety. Thriving means reclaiming those disowned parts and allowing them to inform your wholeness. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be real. And real includes both light and dark. So, if you've ever been trying to fix yourself by cutting out pieces you don't stop. That's not healing, it's rejection. Instead, begin to explore what you've pushed away. Journal your honest thoughts. Reflect on your triggers. Notice what irritates you and others. It often reveals what you've yet to accept in yourself. When you integrate your shadow, you stop living in fear of who you are. And that's when the real thriving begins, not as an act, but as your truth. One of the most subtle yet devastating mistakes we make is living a life designed by others. From the moment we're born, society begins to shape us. Parents, teachers, cultural, trying to mold us into what they believe is right. And slowly, almost Jung referred to this as being trapped in the collective unconscious, living through inherited patterns, traditions, and roles that were never truly ours. When you live a life based on someone else's script, you might succeed by society's standards, but you'll always feel like something is missing. This disconnection creates a void, a sense of restlessness that no achievement can fill. You may find yourself climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. That's your soul whispering, "This isn't who you are." Jung believed that every individual carries within them a unique blueprint, a calling toward wholeness, which he called the self. Thriving isn't about following a path that's popular or approved. It's about discovering the path that's authentically yours, even if it's uncertain or misunderstood. But here's the challenge. Living your truth often means disappointing others. It may mean stepping away from what's familiar. It can feel like a betrayal, but only to the persona you've outgrown. The real betrayal is abandoning yourself. To thrive, you must begin to untangle your true desires from the voices of expectation. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? What would I choose if I wasn't afraid of judgment? These questions begin the journey back to yourself. Many never ask. They conform, they please, they perform, and yet they feel numb, anxious, lost. That's the cost of abandoning your inner truth. Jung's process of individuation invites us to break away from the collective mold and reclaim our authenticity. It's not rebellion, it's return. Return to your own center, to your intuitive knowing, to your inner compass that quietly guides you, even when the world tries to drown it out. So, take a moment. Reflect on the life you're living. Whose dreams are you chasing? Whose fears are you avoiding? To thrive means daring to choose you, not in arrogance, but in alignment. Because only when you live in harmony with your true self can you create a life that feels both free and fulfilling. The world doesn't need more replicas, it needs you, fully alive, fully awake, and fully you. There is a language within you that speaks without words. It rises in dreams, whispers through gut feelings, and surfaces in strange coincidences that feel like more than chance. Jung called this realm the unconscious, and within it lives a powerful force, symbolic truth. The mistake so many make in their pursuit of growth is to ignore this inner language, to dismiss dreams as meaningless, intuition as irrational, and synchronicity as coincidence. But thriving requires more than logic. It demands listening to the wisdom beneath the surface. You were born with an inner compass, what Jung called the archetypal self. It knows your path before you do. It speaks in imagery, emotion, and impulse. But in a world obsessed with data and control, we are trained to silence it. We rationalize every decision, bury every sign, and disconnect from the deeper layers of meaning that once guided ancient civilizations. The result, a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. Jung taught that dreams, symbols, and synchronicities are not random. They are mirrors, reflections of your inner state, carrying messages from the deeper parts of your psyche. Ignoring them is like throwing away a map in the middle of a forest. If you've ever felt lost, unsure, or stuck, perhaps it's not because there's no direction. Perhaps you've just forgotten how to listen. Your psyche has been speaking to you all along through nightmares, recurring thoughts, emotional triggers. Each one is a clue. Start paying attention. Write down your dreams. Reflect on what symbols consistently show up in your life. What themes repeat themselves? What emotions surge when you're alone in silence? These are not accidents, they are invitations. When you honor them, you begin to realign with the deeper rhythm of your being. Thriving isn't just about external progress, it's about inner resonance. When your life moves in harmony with your unconscious guidance, everything starts to flow with unexpected clarity. To thrive, you must awaken your symbolic eye. Begin to treat your inner world with reverence. Recognize that not everything important can be measured or explained. Some truths are felt. Some paths are revealed only through mystery. Jung didn't want us to escape the unknown, he wanted us to explore it. because it is in the darkness of the unconscious that you find the light of your purpose. And once you begin to trust that light, even in its faintest glow, you'll never be truly lost again. We live in a world that worships distraction, constant notifications, endless scrolling, noise upon noise, and yet amidst all this external stimulation, a quiet truth lingers. You cannot truly thrive without facing yourself. The fourth mistake many make is fearing solitude, avoiding stillness, avoiding the deep inner work that Jung believed was essential to becoming whole. But the path to your potential does not run through more busyness. It runs through your own depths. Jung understood solitude not as isolation, but as sacred space, a space where the ego loosens its grip and the self begins to speak. Yet many fear this space, because in it, there are no masks left to wear. In solitude, you meet your pain, your truth, your unmet needs. It's easier to stay busy than to feel, easier to perform than to reflect. But without that inner descent, there can be no real ascent. You cannot rise until you've sat with what's buried. Avoiding this inner confrontation is like trying to build a house on shaky ground. No matter how impressive it looks, it won't last. Jung's process of individuation, the path to becoming your full, authentic self, requires inner work. That means embracing periods of aloneness, not as punishment, but as preparation. Because it is in the quiet that you begin to hear what truly matters. The deeper voice, the one that isn't shaped by others, but rooted in your own soul. Think of all the things you've chased trying to avoid that. Silence, relationships, work, entertainment. How often have they truly filled you? And how often have they simply distracted you from the emptiness you didn't want to face? Thriving means turning toward that emptiness with compassion, not fear, because within that void lies the seed of transformation. Jung taught that what we resist persists, but what we face, we can integrate. And integration leads to freedom. So take time, unplug, sit with yourself, let the discomfort speak, let the tears fall, let the stillness break open something real. Because once you've walked through the valley of your own soul, you emerge with a strength no one can take away. You stop needing the world to validate you. You begin to create from wholeness, not from lack. That is the power of inner work, and it is the gateway through which all true thriving begins. There's a strange comfort in the familiar, even when it hurts. We hold on to patterns, people, and roles long past their expiration, clinging not because they serve us, but because they're known. And that is the fifth mistake that silently steals our capacity to thrive. Resisting change. Jung taught that life is a series of transformations, and each phase of growth requires the death of a former identity. But the ego resists this. It wants security, predictability, and control. And so, we stay small not because we lack potential, but because we fear the unknown. But here's the paradox. Everything you long for, freedom, purpose, inner peace, lives on the other side of that fear. Thriving isn't a return to comfort, it's a rebirth. And rebirth always involves letting something die, whether it's an outdated belief, a toxic dynamic, or a false version of yourself. You must have the courage to release what no longer aligns with who you're becoming. Jung called this the alchemical process, the psychological transformation where the old self dissolves to make room for the new. We often think of change as something external, a new job, a different city, but the deepest changes are internal shifts. The moments when you stop betraying your truth, when you stop abandoning your instincts, when you choose to trust the process instead of forcing a result. Those inner shifts ripple outward and begin to reshape your life in ways logic alone could never orchestrate. This is the magic of surrendering to transformation. And yes, it's scary. Growth always is. But Jung believed that fear is not a sign to stop it, as a sign that the threshold of the self is near. The very discomfort you're trying to avoid is the door you've been searching for. When you stop resisting change, you stop resisting yourself. Because the self is not static, it evolves. And each time you shed an old skin, you come closer to your essence. That essence is not fragile. It is eternal. It knows the way. So if you're standing at the edge of change, don't step back. Lean in. Let go of who you were so you can become who you are. Because when you finally stop clinging to the familiar, you create space for the extraordinary. And that's what thriving truly is. Not a life free from change, but a life built through it with intention, with courage, and with the unwavering trust that your soul knows the way home. In the end, what holds us back is rarely what we see, it's what we refuse to see. Beneath every hesitation, every moment of doubt, Every self-sabotaging choice lies a deeper truth waiting to be acknowledged. Carl Jung taught that the journey toward wholeness begins not with ambition, but with awareness. And now, as you've walked through the shadows, illusions, and hidden resistances that quietly shape your life, the question remains: will you continue as before, or will you choose to become? The mistakes we explored are not flaws, they are thresholds. Each one invites you to step into your own power by confronting what has been buried, distorted, or feared. You've seen how denying your shadow drains your vitality, how living by others' values dims your light, how ignoring your inner voice cuts you off from direction, how avoiding solitude robs you of self-intimacy, and how resisting change keeps you bound to a smaller life. These are not just concepts, they are the invisible scripts that shape your fate until you rewrite them. But now you can rewrite them, not through force, but through choice, through presence, through courage. Jung believed that self always seeks to emerge, but it requires the cooperation of your conscious will. The moment you decide to face your inner world with honesty, life begins to shift. What once felt impossible begins to unfold. What once felt like chaos begins to organize itself around your truth. You don't have to know every step. You only have to take the first with conviction. So take a breath. Feel the quiet power of who you're becoming. You are not here to merely survive. You are here to evolve, to awaken, to thrive, not as a copy of someone else, but as the most integrated, embodied, and authentic version of yourself. The world needs that version of you, and the only thing standing in the way is what you choose not to confront. But now, you've seen it, and once seen, it cannot be unseen. The only question that remains is, what will you do with that truth? If this message stirred something in you, if it made you reflect, breathe deeper, or see your life a little more clearly, then stay with this journey. Subscribe to the channel, tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next, and share your insight in the comments. What part of today's message resonated most? Your voice matters. And remember, real transformation begins not when we consume information, but when we dare to engage with it. So take that step. This is where your thriving truly begins.